What is it like to write for kids? Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelanceverse. Thanks for coming back to the channel. As most of you guys know, I always try to tell you how important it is that you have your target language on lock. It needs to be perfect, right? Less so the source language, but it's really very much about the target language. So I wanted to start a series to really focus on that, to give you guys ideas of different registers, different audiences, different styles of writing. And we're going to kick this off today with a special guest on the channel. Mieke is joining us. She's a children's author and also a translator. So it's the perfect mix. I wanted to have someone who writes for a young audience, but has the inclination and the mindset of a translator. Thanks very much to Mieke for coming on the channel. The links to her socials, to her LinkedIn, to her website, I think as well, are all down below. So make sure to check it out. Check her book out if you're a Dutch speaker, and enjoy the interview. And I have here today with me Mieke, who is a translator and also a children's author. Thank you so much for joining, Mieke.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Could you tell the viewers a bit about yourself? How long have you been doing what you're doing?
The writing part is a bit more difficult to say. So just let me start by saying I'm a freelance translator. I started about 9 years ago, but it became like a full-time thing during the COVID pandemic, actually.
Oh, okay. Like for many of us, yes.
Yeah, that's when my work really started to take off. And then also when I decided like, okay, now I'm going to do this full-time because I specialize in audiovisual translation, subtitling. Many of the streaming platforms during the pandemic really profited from that.
That's true, yeah. They pumped out a lot of content. Yeah. It's funny because it's not funny, but so many industries suffered so much in that time, and I feel like localization was booming during
exactly.
COVID, yeah.
Exactly. So I have very mixed feelings about COVID.
Yeah, true. You recently switched or incorporated also writing into your professional path?
Well, no, actually. So I have always wanted to be a writer, even when I was like a child. And then I started writing short stories and stuff myself, and like competing in small local writing competitions. And I started working on my first book when I was, I think, in college. And then it took me like 10 years to write my first book. So I only published a couple of years ago, but I have been working on my first book for many years. But
really? But it was always the idea was always for it to be a children's book, or did it change over the years?
No, it was always meant to be a children's book. I mean, I got the idea when I was still a child. So I was a teenager when I got the book. So yeah, I was 14, maybe 15 when I got the idea for my first book, and then that marinated over time, let's say, and I completely rewrote it after a couple of years. But yeah, that's where the idea stemmed from. So it was only logical that it was going to be a children's book.
Then, that's so romantic, this whole idea, huh? Amazing. Do you remember what inspired you for this story?
No, I honestly don't. I just had the idea, like, oh my God, that's a cool idea. I don't think there's a book like that yet. Let's do it. Okay. Very nice. What language do you write in? Dutch.
Dutch, okay, yes. You are Belgian, right?
I'm Belgian, yes.
Yes, okay. And then after the first book, you recently wrote the second book, right?
Yeah, recently published it, but again, it is a slightly less long-term, but a longer-term project. It was kind of finished right before COVID, but that was not really the time to publish. And then it just lay there for a couple of years. And then I was like, okay, why don't I just do it now? And then...
Very nice. Okay, so it's a very specific writing approach and style that you have. Right? You put it on the back burner. And can you tell us a bit how is the approach for like the process of writing for you? How do you come up with the characters, the story? Where do you draw inspiration from?
Well, so I just start from an idea, and then I let the idea take some time, marinate, develop a bit, and then I try to devise my characters. And like, you know, I find it important to really know your characters, even if there are things that are not specifically in the book. I mean, it gives them a voice, it gives them a character, like know what their likes and their dislikes are, stuff like that. I get like a general idea of what the plot will be, but not too specific. I know there are authors who really like plan every little detail in advance, but for me it's like only the general idea, and then as I'm writing, sometimes I get like new ideas and new inspirations, and I let the story guide me. So I know where it will end, but I don't know how it will get there. Or there might all of a sudden pop up new characters that I wasn't expecting, because for instance, I had it in my latest novel about a girl who is looking for her brother in a fantasy kind of world, but she was on her own all the time. I was like, I can't really have her on her own all the time. How can I solve this? Because I mean, I can't have her talking to herself constantly.
Okay.
And I was like, but it is a fantasy world. Wouldn't it be cool if I just had some kind of fantasy-like creature join her on the quest? And then I came up with a talking dog, and that became her best friend in her journey. And so the dog wasn't planned, but it's actually one of the best characters in the book, I think.
I see. So you identified kind of a problem, like you need something to fill this gap with, and then you drew inspiration from the world where the character is in. Oh, that's amazing. That's so nice. It really makes me want to read the book. I'm not sure if my level of Dutch is good enough, but
well, I'm currently working on an English translation, so.
Oh wow, okay, that's nice. But actually, level of reading brings me to an interesting question, because when you're writing for kids, children, like, I don't know, toddler, teenager, it's such a wide range, right? Do you have an audience in mind? Do you have an age in mind? And how do you ensure that you can write age appropriately for them?
Yeah, I do have an age range, let's say, in mind. So I know it will be for the youngest readers, or it will be for like 10, 11, 12-year-olds, or it will, well, I haven't written for teenagers, or it will be teenagers, but it's not like to say, okay, it's for 9 years old, that's it. So I have a range in mind, and then I adapt my writing style to that age. Yes.
But you're writing books that are meant to be read by the kids and not by parents for the kids, right?
Yes. So my second book is really for like the very young readers who have been learning how to read and have been reading for like 1 year or something. So they're still very much learning how it works. So then it really has to be an easier type of language, and that's probably not as interesting for their parents.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Maybe in the sense that they will sit with them and help them with reading in that sense, but not a book that the parents will take like, oh my God, that looks interesting. I'll read it for myself as well, if you know what I mean. Other books that are more meant for older children and even teenagers. I mean, we've seen plenty of examples lately with J.K. Rowling and the Hunger Games and stuff. They are written for children or for teenagers, but everyone loves them. So.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and if you have such international success, then your readers grow up with you, right? And they turn from teenagers into adults, and of course they remain fans. But it's a very unique skill, I feel like, to write for a technically teenager audience, but still apply.
Definitely.
Yeah, appeal to so many adults. In terms of unique challenges, what do you have to look out for when you're writing for underage people?
I think, well, the main thing is language, I guess, in a way. Like, you can't make it too complex. Well, again, depends on what age range you're writing for. But especially for the younger readers, you can't make it too complex. But at the same time, you don't want to make it childish either. So it must be challenging for them, but not too challenging.
And how do you get there? Do you just read the books that are kind of similar to your style and you try to learn this language, or do you have personal experience from when you were that age? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was a very avid reader when I was.
So sorry for that quick intermission. I had some technical problems, so I changed rooms, but we are back. I think the last thing you said, Mieke, is that you were an avid reader as a teenager, right? And you get a lot of your language skills now writing for kids from your personal experience as well.
Yeah. So I've always been a big reader. That was exactly where we left off, right? So I've always been a big reader, and especially as a child. Now there's slightly less time, but so I really got a feel for books. And now I'm basically writing the books I would have loved to read myself when I was a child. So
Oh, that's so cool, yeah. Whatever wasn't there, what you were looking for. That's why you had the ideas already as a teenager, what you would write later, right? You knew exactly what you would need. Okay, nice. And do you include illustrations in your books?
One of them has illustrations and the other one doesn't. So the one for the youngest age group still has illustrations, and the other one for the slightly older children, like early teenagers, that one doesn't have pictures.
Okay. And how did this process of the illustrations happen? Did you make them yourself, or did you work with someone?
No. I worked with someone. Well, when I was working on that book, I was still working as a teacher. Like I said, I wasn't a full-time translator immediately, so I was working as a teacher, and my colleague who was doing like arts and crafts and those kinds of things was actually starting out drawing on computers and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, if you want the project, I might.
Okay, nice.
And she immediately jumped on the idea, and yeah, we've worked together on both books, because the other one she also designed the cover. So
Oh yeah, the cover is another aspect, of course. Okay,
yeah,
nice. So you're creating jobs as well out there. Very good. And this writing style for children, does this also transfer into your profession as a translator? Do you also write? Do you also work on translation for younger adults or children?
Well, like I said, I work mainly in subtitling, so well, depends on the type of content I'm subtitling, but I do really like children's movies and series as well.
Okay, yeah. So you can really market yourself also as that, as a specific skill set in the language that you know for a young audience, right? This is a
yeah, well, I don't specialize in that kind of subtitling, but it's definitely something of the things I love to do, yes.
Yeah.
Just in general, working with stories is basically what I love in subtitling. So also romantic comedies and drama and stuff. So it's not just children's stuff, but it's definitely part of it, yes.
Okay, very nice. So it also transfers over into, I mean, in a way, translation is also writing, right? You are especially in subtitling, you are really localizing a movie or a series for a special audience. In terms of cultural references, nuances in your books and in your translations, can you tell us a bit about this? Do you have is Belgian kids or Dutch-speaking kids your prime? Do you have them in mind with the cultural experiences that they have growing up? Do you think about that, or do you also incorporate other cultures in a way?
Well, both my books are really, really in a fictional world, so not that big an impact in my books. But I do have, well, for my books, I had Flemish children in mind. So when they're referring to, we did this in school, the school will be described in the way that Belgian kids will experience school.
Okay, I see. Yeah, exactly. So, like things like the educational system, that would be, because I'm just thinking now, if I would write a book for Swiss kids, it would be very different than for German kids. And that must be the same with, with that. Okay.
So it's in those kind of things that you notice, but apart from that, like I said, it's a really, really imaginative world. It's, for instance, the second book is in a world with fairy tale creatures, and they are pretty well known across, well, not maybe every culture, obviously, but like in Europe, across cultures, they pretty much everyone knows Little Red Riding Hood, or
exactly,
or well, she's not in the book, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I see. And cultural sensitivities you would only ever have to worry about when you start translating it into many different languages, right? That's when you would have to think like,
Yeah.
can I name this character also this name in Spanish and stuff, right?
Yeah, because that is
exactly.
what, like I said, what I am in the process of translating the book, and that's some of the things that I was working like, okay, no, I can't use this name. It's very, very Dutch. I need to find a name that works a bit better in an English context.
Okay.
Name is definitely something that will play a part in the localization and stuff.
Yeah. Because I know that some Dutch or Belgian names, if you just read them as the word is, then it can be an English word as well, right? So it could become very confusing, right? Okay, I see. And how do you work on this process? Are you working with a translator, or are you now going through it yourself?
I'm currently still doing it myself. I mean, my working languages are English and Dutch. Okay. So I'm currently translating it myself, but I do plan on finding someone native to review it and tweak some things, and yeah.
Okay, yeah, like an editor. So you would do the translation and then give it to an editor.
Yeah.
Okay, very nice. I'm excited for it to come out. Let me know when this happens. And of course, all the links that you want to share with my Dutch-speaking audience. I don't think it's that big, but there are a few people. They can check out the book. One thing I'm wondering, or I would probably be worrying when I'm writing a book, not only for children, but in general. You kind of course, you're writing a book for yourself, as you said. You're writing what you would want to have read, but this connection that you want to have to the audience, right? How can you keep someone's attention? How can you make sure that someone wants to continue reading until the end? I think I would feel so self-conscious because it's kind of it's in my head, right? It's my idea. How can you know that this is appealing to others? You can't really know, right? You just have to try, or
yeah, definitely. That's why my first book took so many years.
Okay, I see.
It was really like trying, and then like, yeah, no, I can't show this to anyone, and I can't. And then at some point, I really had to like, okay, yeah, it is at the point where I hope it's good enough. Let's see if it really is. And I didn't just publish it, so I had like proofreaders, and that's also something that I really thought was important. I had proofreaders that were adults that were like
language professionals, but I also had kids.
Oh, really?
I really,
Nice.
really wanted their input to see like what works, what doesn't work, what are you missing, what are you loving, things like that. And if they found a typo, great, but that was not the focus when I gave it to
Yeah, that was more a focus group research.
Oh,
and
that's so
really,
cool. Yeah.
really helped me because I'm constantly talking about the second book, but that's because it's so recent, right?
Pressure,
So,
yeah, of course.
so for that one, for instance, I really thought I had finished the book, and then I gave it screens, and I should add they were older than my target audience, but still having younger readers gives it a new perspective. And I really thought like, okay, and this is a nice ending, and that's how it will go, and yeah, that's fine. And they were like, but what happens to that character?
Okay. It just disappears.
Well, it didn't. It kind of disappeared, but it really disappeared. I mean, I did write an ending, but it was, in hindsight, very unsatisfactory. But I didn't realize. And then they were like, but what happens to him? Because we really like him, and he just goes off, and that's it. So I completely rewrote the ending of the book. It's much better now.
Wow. And was it the talking dog?
It was the talking dog.
Of course.
Yeah, because I was like,
because you didn't have him planned, right? So he didn't have an ending.
It was like he's part of the imaginary world, so he will just stay in that world when the children just go back to the normal world, and they say their goodbyes, and that was it. And I didn't really go too deeply into it, and they were like, this is so important, he's so nice, and you can't just have him. Yeah, no, he needs a proper ending, and so I completely rewrote like the last 2 or 3 chapters, I think.
Okay, that's such a good feedback. Yeah, because like a professional editor, of course, it's important, but you will always get like the professional feedback, right? But from kids, it's probably completely different words. And
Yeah.
even if someone just tells you, I don't know, this doesn't feel right, or this is not, I can't explain why it's not good, but it doesn't feel right, then it tells you, okay, I need to change that, right? You're probably looking at it from an adult perspective and not from a teenager. Yeah, because I mean, they face so many different challenges already now that what we faced when we were teenagers, right? The world is so fast, so it must be very hard to just put yourself in their shoes, right? What do they know about the world? It's much more connected, so I guess they have more far-reaching interests than we had 10, 15 years ago. So it's a very interesting niche you're building there, and I'm very interested, and I will talk to you more about that definitely in the future. But to round up the video, I always like to ask my guests for pieces of advice. So if people are watching this, found it on YouTube, or are avid watchers of the channel, and they think either translating for children's content or writing children's book is their thing, what can you give them on their journey? How can they get into this area? What should they do in the near future?
Well, it is a cliche, but read,
Mm-hmm.
read some more. Really get to know how other authors tackle. I mean, you don't have to copy them, but just to get a feel for how other people write for children and what topics are interesting to children. And also write every day. Doesn't matter, even if you're not working on your book, write something.
Okay.
Just to, I mean, it's like a skill you have to train, and if you do it a lot, it gets much more fluent than if you just like, okay, now I'm going to write, and the next month I'm going to write for an hour. Then you're not in the flow of writing. And also, don't get stuck on details.
Yeah, that would be my issue, I think.
Just get it written, and then you can start polishing and completely rewriting. Like I said, I completely rewrote the ending of the book. So just get it out there, get something, because it's much easier to polish than it is to create.
I guess that's right, yeah. But how can you say that as a translator? Don't get stuck on details. That's what we do, no?
Yeah. But that's why I'm saying, because it's such a different mindset. So when I'm writing, I just need to forget, like, okay, I don't need to have everything perfect yet. And because
really?
like I'm
okay, so you have like two different hats: translator hat, writer hat.
Yeah. Also, I work it very differently, because when I'm translating, I'm always working on my laptop. When I write, I write by hand.
No way! Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I write by hand, and I'm like scribbling things in between, and then crossing things out, and arrows, and it's a mess. And then my first proper draft is when I type that mess into my computer.
Okay, I see.
So when I start tweaking a bit, and then I reread it and I rewrite it and stuff like that. But my very first version is just on paper.
That's how you distinguish kind of the mindset and the mentality then, yeah. But do you see writing as part of your work, or do you see it as a hobby that you enjoy doing?
It's a hobby for me.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's the difference.
It would become work, but right now it's still a hobby.
I mean, yeah, of course, like financial impact is what makes it work in the end, but you can still, like, I still see my channel as part of work, right? Even though it would never be sustainable. But I think what you describe makes sense to me. If you really like don't do this in the same workflow as you do translation, but you write it on paper, probably in your free time or on the weekends, right? So yeah, that makes it a difference. Okay, but maybe in the future you become the most famous Belgian children's author, right? And we will all hear great things from you. Well, anyways, thank you very much for being here. And of course, all the links are down below in the description. If you want to reach out to Mieke and ask her questions, I'm sure she is more than happy to reply. Thank you very much. And I see you next Monday with the next video. Bye-bye.